Hello and welcome. Today we are doing volume and surface area. The beginning of the worksheet starts with volume and surface area of rectangular prisms. So let's get started. There are two formulas you need to know for this. The first one is the volume for rectangular prisms. That one is pretty easy. Volume equals length times width times height. The other one you're going to need to know for this part is surface area. Surface area equals 2 times the length times the width. That will give us our top and bottom, plus 2 times the width times the height. That will give us our two side pieces, and then 2 times the length times the height, and that will give us our top and bottom piece. Again, if it helps, you can make 6 faces and figure it out that way. I think in this case the easiest thing to do is plug and chug your length, your width, and your height. So for this one, we're going to say our length is 1 foot, our width is 1 foot, and our height is 3 feet. This is going to be our height right here. So all we have to do for volume, which is the first thing they ask for, is multiply. So again, I am going to I'm going to set up the problem for you, and you'll do the math. So I'm going to do it over here on the side, or maybe right here, and I would recommend highly that you do this on a separate sheet of paper and then staple it to this one. So we have our volume, and we're going to say length times width times height. That's pretty easy. I'm only going to use different colors for this first one just to show you. It takes a little while to change colors, so I'm not going to do it for everyone. So we have length is 1 foot that we got right here. Our width is 1 foot, which is right here. And then we're going to multiply that to our height, which is 3 feet. So you multiply 1 times 1 times 3, pretty easy. Make sure that when you are talking about volume, in this case we're talking feet, so it's going to be feet cubed, okay? Feet with the exponent of 3, because we're multiplying 3 things. Surface area is a little bit longer. I'm going to put it over here. Surface area for number 1 is going to be, let's see if the black shows up, 2 times the length times the width. So our length is 1 foot times our width, which is also 1 foot. Okay, so all I did was 2 times 1 times 1, which is 2 times the length times the width. We're going to add that. So since we're doing 2 of them, that takes care of this top piece and the bottom piece that we can't see. We're going to add that to 2 times the width and height. So your width is there and your height is back here. Alright, so that can be, you can call that the front piece and the back piece if you want. So we're going to say again 1 times, and in this case it's going to be 3 for our height. And finally we're going to multiply the last 2 pieces, which is the length here and the height, which can be our 2 side pieces. So we have plus 2 times our length, which is 1, times our height, which is 3. Okay, kind of color coordinate it so you can see where these numbers are coming from. There's your length is in red, your width is in blue, your height is in green. And then the numbers that you use every time, which would be the 2, because there's 2 pieces for each, are in black. So you're going to multiply. You got to do order of ops first. You're going to multiply each of these separate pieces first. So you should end up with 3 products, aka 3 numbers that are the answers when you multiply. You don't want to put this straight across because your calculator won't do it correctly. So if you say 2 times 1 times 1 plus 2 times, if you put that straight in your calculator, it's going to add the 2 to the 1, and that won't be what you want. You want to multiply everything first. Once you get your 3 answers, then you just add them. This answer plus this answer plus this answer. And that will give you your final surface area answer. Now when we do surface area, we're technically only multiplying 2 dimensions, right? Either the length and width, or the width and the height, or the length and the height. You're not multiplying 3 like we did with volume. So surface area, when we want to label it, again, we're still talking feet, but this time we're going to label it feet squared. Okay? So that's going to go to volume, and this answer down here will go for surface area. Alright, let's look at number 2. Well, if you notice, number 2 is almost the same. We have our length, our width, and our height, so we can go ahead and mark those. It's just like they took this one and laid it on its side. So since you're multiplying the exact same things, and this is going to be our, we'll call this our width, and this 1 foot will be our height, you're multiplying the same things together. So to be honest, your answers should be exactly the same. Your volume is going to be length times width times height, so 3 times 1 times 1. And if you notice, that's the same thing we did over here, 1 times 1 times 3. And we know that the commutative property says you can multiply them in any order and you'll get the same answers. So that's for your volume. And for your surface area, you have 2 times the length times the height, so 3 times, or I'm sorry, length times width, so 3 times 1, plus 2 times the width times the height, so 1 times 1, plus 2 times the length times the height, so 3 times 1. And again, if you notice, this looks just like this, just in a different order. Here we said 2 times 1 times 1 at the beginning, here it's in the middle. But again, if you do this correctly, you should get the same answers for 1 that you got for 2. And I don't want you to think that you messed up, because since they have the same numbers, just in different spots, you still should get the same thing. So you multiply each section first, and then you take the product, which is the answer for multiplying. You take the product and add them together, and that would be your surface area answer. Okay, now I'm going to remove all this writing to be able to do 3 and 4. So make sure you pause the video if you need to and write this down. Alright, let's move on to 3 and 4. So if we scroll down here, okay, we have 3 and 4, and now we have some different numbers, so it'll be a little better. We still have the volume is still length times width times height, And our surface area formula is still 2 times the length times the width plus 2 times the width times the height. And please remember, all of this is on your formula sheet. I teach this multiple times a day, so I have it memorized. You, however, do not need to have it memorized. Finally, 2 times the length times the height. Okay? So just make sure when you look on your formula sheet, if you don't know which formula to use, you need to decide, are you looking for volume or surface area? And you worked on that in the other station where you decided, are you going to wrap something or fill it, right? Surface area would be wrapping or covering. Volume would be filling. Once you figure out if you're looking for volume or surface area, then look for the picture, right, that looks the same, what looks like a rectangular prism on your formula sheet. That will tell you what formula to use. So here we can say our width, or actually we can make this our length, to be honest, because you're using all the numbers, it doesn't really matter. We'll make our width 8, and then our height here is going to be the 2. So for volume, you're going to have length times width times height. So you just multiply these three things. 3 times 8 times 2. And that'll give you that answer. This is probably the easiest formula of all the ones you need to use, but you only use it if you want volume of a rectangular prism. So again, since we're multiplying 3 dimensions, it's going to be, in this case, meters. It's going to be meters cubed. For our surface area, it's a little bit longer. Our surface area is going to be 2 times, because we have 2 sides, the length times the width. So length and width is going to give my top and my bottom piece that I can't see, but that's going to be 3 times 8 plus, so I'm going to add that, because remember, surface area is the sum of all the sides, 2 times my width and my height, which is going to be the left and right sides. So we have 8 is my width, and 2 is my height, plus 2, and remember, this 2 that we keep using over and over, this very first 2 that's in the formula, that's because there are 2 sides. So don't think, oh wait, is it this 2? No, it's because you have a top, bottom, front, back, side to side that are the same. So rather than having a really long formula with 6 pieces of information, we have a shorter formula with only 3 pieces. And so length times height is this right here. So here's your length and there's your height. So it's the front piece and then this back piece that we can't see. So 3, and this is another 2 back here because that's our height. Once you have all this, you multiply each piece together separately, and then you take your answers and you add them together. And that will give you your total surface area. Now, I gotta be honest, guys, I notice some of you are writing all this down, but you're leaving the blanks. The whole purpose of me doing this is to show you what numbers you need, but you need to be able to operate a calculator and find the answers yourself. Since we are technically only multiplying 2 dimensions, right, either length, width, width, height, or length, height, it's only going to be meters squared for surface area. So squared goes with surface area, cubed goes with volume. Okay, that's all there is to it. Let's look at number 4. Now number 4 is going to be easy. Remember, if they're all the same, we call this a cube, right? Because it's made up of all squares. But you can still use the same formula and do it the same way. And if you notice on your formula sheet, there is not a separate formula 4 cubes because cubes are done in the exact same way. So there is our length, our width, and our height. Volume is going to be 10 cubed, or 10 times 10 times 10. And again, now we're talking centimeters, so it's going to be centimeters cubed. Or we have surface area, which is going to be 2 times 10 times 10, 3 times. But we can't just say this times 3, right? So we're going to add it again. I guess we could, couldn't we? Because if you say 2 times 10 times 10, and you get that answer, and you take that answer and multiply it by these 3 pieces, then that would be everything you need. Or to be honest, if you wanted to make it even shorter, since it's a cube, you could just say 10 times 10 times 6, because 2, 4, 6 sides, and they're all the same amount. A little revelation there. Alright, so again, you multiply each piece separately. And that will give you your total surface area. You add up all 3, and you get your surface area equals that amount. And again, since we're technically only multiplying 2 pieces at a time, 2 dimensions anyway, we're going to call it squared. Okay? So that's number 3 and 4. And that's the end of our rectangular prisms. We're going to move on to cylinders next. Now again, this should be familiar to you from last year, but I want to make sure we have down our basics before we start practicing the harder problems, the triangular prisms and the pyramids and all that stuff. So go ahead, pause the video if you need to. Make sure you have all this written down. Use your calculator, solve the problems, add them up, and write your answers. And we're going to move on. Okay, here we go down to our cylinders. So we have number 5 and 6 here. Now, alright, so volume for a cylinder. To find volume of any shape, you multiply the area of the base times the height. So how do we find area of a circle? Pi r squared is area of a circle. And we have to multiply that by the height. So that's how they created that formula. Pi r squared times h. Pi times r squared times h. For surface area, it's a little bit more complicated, but not too bad. First, you're going to find the area of what they call a lateral rectangle. It's the rectangle that wraps around the cylinder. So remember, if this was a soup can and I took an X-Acto knife and cut the label right off and unfolded it, it would make a rectangle. So to go around a circle is circumference. So we have 2 pi r, right? That's how you find circumference. And we need to know how tall it is, so we're going to multiply it to the height. Somebody is beeping their horn. Can you hear? Okay. Plus, because remember, surface area is all the sides. So this first piece just finds the, lateral rectangle to go around it. The second piece is going to be the areas of our 2 bases. And remember, we have 2 circles. So we're going to have 2, because we have 2 circles, we're going to have 2 times, and how do we find area again? Pi r squared. So it looks like, sorry, the mouse isn't working very well. So we're going to have what looks like a complicated formula with pi's and r's and all that stuff, but really, if you break it down, it's not that bad. Circumference times the height plus the area of a circle times 2, because we have 2 of them. So let's get started. Remember, if they go ahead and give you halfway, which they do here, now I'm going to change colors real quick. Here, anything that stops halfway is the radius. The only time we have to worry about taking a diameter is if that dotted line had gone all the way across. Then that means the 4 inches would be the whole thing. If they show you, like they do here in 5 and 6, that it stops halfway through, see how again it stops here in the middle? That means they want you to use that number as the radius. So that makes life a little easier. So that is our radius. Okay, so then our height would be the 6 inches. Okay, so now let's go ahead and figure out the volume and surface area for number 5. So my volume is going to be pi, and remember, if you forget, pi is on your formula sheet, so you don't even have to memorize this, which you're very lucky because when I was your age I did. Pi is 3.14. Okay, so we're going to take 3.14, which is given to us, times r squared, which is 4, times our height, which is 6. Something I've noticed you guys did when we were working on last night's homework was you would not hit equals after your 4 squared. So if you hit the little squared button on your calculator, it would say 16 automatically. But then you have to go ahead and hit times 6 or hit equals if you're just doing these 2 pieces. You can't just leave 4 squared without hitting equals, because it will not, the calculator won't use the rest of these numbers. So if you're going to use the squared button, that's fine. Just make sure you hit the equal sign afterwards. So if I were you, I would do the 4 squared first and then multiply everything. But you can do 3.14 times 4 squared times 6 and then hit equals afterwards. That is completely your choice. Okay? Again, volume is going to be cubed, so this is going to be inches cubed, the little 3. Surface area, now I'm going to do surface area a little bit out here because it is a little bit longer. Surface area for number 5 is going to be my circumference, which is 2 times pi times my radius. Right? That's your circumference, 2 times pi times radius, and then you want to multiply it by the height, which is 6. That'll give you all this area right here, all the way around the circle. Then you're going to add that to 2 times, because we have 2 bases, the area of a circle, which is pretty much what this part is right here without the height. So 2 times 3.14 times, and in this case my radius is 4, so it's going to be 4 squared. And again, I beg you, please make sure that you multiply each piece independently. That means on its own. So I would again do the 4 squared first, but you don't have to. Just make sure you hit equals after this, because guys, be honest, if you put in, forget the decimal, if you put in 2 times 3 times 4 squared and you only get 16, 4 squared is 16 by itself. This has to be bigger than that. So a little bit of number sense, knowing that 4 times 4 is 16, so if I'm going to multiply that to two more numbers, my number's going to get bigger. So I would do them separately and then add them at the end. And that's going to be your surface area. Technically, we're only multiplying 2 dimensions at once, so this is going to be inches squared. So pretty much anytime you're finding volume, it's a 3 at the top. Anytime you're finding surface area, it's only a 2. Let's look at number 6. Number 6, we have the same height, right? But our radius is shorter. Our radius is only 2. So for volume, we're still going to have the 3.14, but this time we're going to multiply it by 2 squared instead of the 4 squared. So you should not get the same answers here. Okay, if you get the same answers, that's a problem. So that's for our volume, and in this case it's going to be centimeters cubed. And then for our surface area, we're going to find the circumference, which is going to be 2 times pi times our radius, which in this case is 2, times, and our height is still 6, so times 6. So 2 times 3 point, this is a decimal, 14 times 2 times 6. That'll give us all the way around this cylinder, all this part, and then we're going to multiply that by our 2 bases, or the area of our 2 bases, which is 3.14, 2 times, because there's 2 of them, 3.14 times our 2 squared, because pi r squared is area, so pi r squared. Again, multiply these two, multiply these, and then add, and that should give you your surface area. That kind of looks like a meh face. Okay, and your surface area is going to be centimeters squared. So again, write this down. Make sure you fill in the blanks. Writing this without filling in the blanks is pointless. You're not going to get any credit because you're not actually finding an answer. I appreciate you watching the video and at least taking the time to write it down. That's the first step. It's a good step, but you got to follow through. You got to finish. It's like, running the marathon and stopping, 10 feet in front of the finish line. Doesn't really count unless you finish it. All right, enough of that. Let's move on to the last two. I'm going to clear this out, so pause the video right now if you need to and write all this down and solve it, and then start the video again for 7 and 8. Okay, here we go, our last two. This wasn't too bad. Okay, so real quick, again, if you have a problem where you need to find volume, look on your formula sheet, find the one that looks like a cylinder, and then find the volume, the one that says V, that stands for volume. So volume is the area of one base, not two, just one base times the height. So pi r squared is the area of a circle times the height. Surface area, you need to go all the way around the cylinder, so you're going to have circumference, because remember that goes around, times the height, because we got to know how tall it is, plus the area of both bases. Surface area is the sum of all the sides, all bases going around, whatever it is. So we got to add those things together. So again, the nice thing is here, and I'll change colors again to show you, they stop halfway. That means the 5 feet is your radius. You do not have to cut that in half. Same thing with the 8 over here. It stops halfway. If it went all the way across, then you would have to cut it in half. But it stops, so that is our radius. And we know our height here is 17. And our height over here is 22. So now that we have everything labeled, let's solve it. Remember, first step, find your formula. Second step, label. Third step, solve. So volume over here is pi. Remember, they give you pi. I'll put it up here just in case you need it. Pi is 3.14. Have you guys seen what Miss Wolf-Kasulis did with putting the pi numbers all the way around the back hallway and the side hallway? I think she might have even made it to the English classrooms. And how far do you guys think you can get? I think I can get to the 9, right? 3.14159. Yeah, after that, I don't know. Maybe you think you can beat me? Can you get past the 9? You have it memorized for pi? If you do, come tell me. We'll check it out. Alright, so in this case 5 is our radius, so 5 squared times height, which is 17. Again, personally, I would say 5 squared and then multiply the other two, but if you think you can do it the other way, as long as you get the right answer, go for it. So you multiply those three things. We're talking feet here, so this is going to be feet cubed. That's a T. Okay. Surface area is a little bit longer. We have our circumference, which is going to be 2 times pi times our radius, which is 5, times our height, so that it goes all the way around and up and down, which is 17, plus 2 times pi times r squared. And that's going to be the area of the two bases. So you do this guy first. 2 times 3.14 times 5 times 17. You do this guy second. And then you add them. And that's your surface area. It is not complicated, but you do have to follow the steps. This is going to be feet squared. It is really just like a plug and chug. They give you the numbers, you just have to plug them into the formula. And then you have to do order of operations. You can't just do it straight across, it won't work. Alright, last one. Volume for this guy is going to be pi r squared times h, right? How big is our circle and then how tall is it? Because we want to fill it for volume. So we have 3.14 times radius squared, and our radius is 8, times our height, which is 22. Okay? Volume equals. You guys put that in the calculator, and that's your answer. We're dealing with millimeters, so again, for volume, it's always cubed. So millimeters cubed. Surface area, I'll do that over here. Surface area is our circumference, 2 times pi times radius, which is 8. So that's the circumference, and then we have to know how tall it is. So we got to multiply it by the height, so times 22. And then add the area of your two bases. So 2 bases, so I have 2. And then the area is pi times, and our radius squared is 8 squared. So you multiply those, and since there is no exponent, there isn't an exponent, there are no exponents, you can do this one straight across. 2 times 3.14 times 8 times 22. That you can do straight across and get an answer. So hit equals after you do that. But do not put the whole thing in, because that plus sign is going to mess up your calculator. Then this side, 2 times 3.14 times 8 squared. This is going to be a decimal of some sort, and it's going to be bigger than 64. So make sure that you use your common sense when it comes to multiplying, and hit equals after you hit a squared if you do it straight in the calculator. You take those two answers, you add them together, and you have your surface area. Okay, and surface area for this guy is going to be millimeters squared. And that is all there is to this homework. If you have any questions or something doesn't make sense, or you got one answer and your friend got a different answer, raise your hand. We can check it over for you. See if it was just a calculator, you hit the wrong button, or if you're not understanding what numbers to use. Okay, that's all I have. Thanks guys for watching, and good luck.